Hello again, good morning. How are you? It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome to program number 1097. 1097. Okay, that's a lot of programs. Okay, gain fluency. I want to continue where I left off yesterday. Let's continue where we left off yesterday. Page 83. The third paragraph from the bottom, paragraph 758. This paragraph is about my father. When he retired, he bought a house next to a golf course. His plan was to play golf every day, but soon he got tired of it. Before retiring, he had to steal time to play golf. Robar tiempo. Yes. Because when you're working, you don't have a lot of time for leisure activities, actividades de ocio. Los británicos dicen leisure. The spelling is the same. Ocio is leisure or leisure. The British say leisure, the Americans say leisure. But when you're working, it's more difficult to find time for leisure devotions or activities. And my father enjoyed playing golf. And he stole time during the week, usually one afternoon per week. And then on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, or one of the 2 days, to play golf. And so he decided, my parents were living in Corpus Christi, Texas. Corpus Christi is a medium-sized city, 250,000 people. On the Gulf of Mexico, the Texas coast. And when he decided to retire, my father took early retirement on his own initiative. Jubilación anticipada, se dice en inglés early, como temprano, temprano retiro. Early retirement. My father, on his own initiative, and in Corpus Christi. But it's interesting that when he retired, no sé si he contado esta historia, creo que sí, but it's an interesting story. I'm going to tell it again. When my parents, the last 11 or 12 years of my father's career was in Corpus Christi, Texas, an important city in Texas. And when he decided to take early retirement, he and my mother bought a house in Austin, Texas, 3 hours away, in the center of Texas, 4 hours perhaps, in the center of Texas, next to a golf course to play golf. Campo de golf se dice curso de golf, como un curso de inglés. English course, golf course. But before leaving Corpus Christi, he decided to do something interesting, something that nobody has ever done, as far as I know, in history. He went to the bank. He went to the bank. And he ordered, no. First, he went to a school in Corpus Christi, a primary school, escuela primaria, but in the poorest area of Corpus Christi, la zona más pobre, un colegio de primera enseñanza. He went there, and he spoke to the, we have Olegario upstairs, and he spoke to the principal of the school. The word, habló con el principal o la principal, que es el director o la directora del colegio. Se dice en inglés americano, principal. Los británicos suelen decir, creo, headmaster or headmistress. So he spoke to the principal, a woman, with an idea. And they reached an agreement. Okay, what agreement? I'll tell you later. So he went to the school and spoke to the principal in the poorest, the primary school in the poorest area of the city. Then he went to a bank, to his bank, where he has his bank account, and he made an interesting request. He wanted to withdraw. Withdraw es retirar dinero en una cuenta bancaria. He wanted to withdraw $2,000, $2,000, $2,000. But he wanted it in $2 bills. He wanted 1,000 $2 bills. Ahora, 1,000 billetes de $2. Un billete de $2 son billetes muy raros, no se ven casi nunca. Y si alguien tiene un billete de $2, lo suele guardar en un cajón. It's $2 bills. So he needed to wait 5 days because the bank, an important bank, but the bank doesn't have 1,000 $2 bills. So he ordered 1,000. 5 days later, he received, 1,000 $2 bills. 1,000 billetes de $2. All right. Fine. Then he went to the local newspaper, the Corpus Christi Caller, periódico local, and explained what he was going to do. And then my father and the journalist, one of the journalists from the Corpus Christi Caller, they went to the school. And my father went to every classroom in the school. And he spoke for 5 minutes, perhaps, to every group of students in the primary school about the future, about the importance of making an effort. And then he gave every student a $2 bill. He gave every student a $2 bill because there were about 1,000 students in the school. So every student had a $2 bill. And of course, it was in the newspaper. And that was my father's way of saying goodbye to Corpus Christi. So it was an interesting gesture, un gesto curioso, interesante, de agradecimiento, a gesture of appreciation, a gesture of gratitude. All right. But then he and my mother bought a house in Onion Creek. Onion Creek, Riachuelo de las Cebollas, o Arroyo de las Cebollas. Onion Creek. And in Onion Creek, it's very famous. It's a country club, El Club de Campo de Onion Creek. Very good, a very nice golf course. And my father was planning, finally, por fin tengo tiempo. Finally, I have time to play golf. Well, when you have all the time in the world, the things you enjoyed before, stealing time, lose their luster. Pierden su lustre. Se dice igual en inglés. They lose their luster. Escrito luster o lustre en británico americano. Luster. They lose their luster. So my father was playing golf every day for the first 2 months. Then 3 times a week, once a week, and finally, after about 10 years, he stopped playing golf altogether. No había aliciente. There was no stimulus for him to play golf because he had all the time in the world. He was not stealing time to do this. So my father spent probably the last 10 or 15 years of his life focused on the New York stock market, la Bolsa de New York, because he liked, but he didn't move his stocks. To own stock is poseer acciones en bolsa. To own stock, to own shares. So he owned stock, but he very seldom bought and sold stock. He was very conservative. Interesting man, my father and my mother. So when he retired, este párrafo, paragraph 758, page 83. When he retired, he bought a house next to a golf course. Next to a golf course. Al lado de un campo de golf. Next to a golf course. His plan was to play golf every day. But soon he got tired of it. To get tired of something. Me estoy cansando de dar estas clases. I'm getting tired of giving these classes. I'm getting tired of English. I'm getting tired of that microphone. I'm getting tired of that camera. All right, to get tired of. But soon my father, he got tired of playing golf. Before retiring, antes de retirarse o jubilarse, before retiring, he had to steal time to play golf. It's different. Before retiring, I have a terrible problem with the verb retire. Llevo 50 años y todavía la gente no acierta con decir jubilarse en inglés. It's very simple. Retire. Cuando yo retire, cuando yo me jubile, en inglés cuando yo retire, compraré una casa nueva. When I retire, ya está. When I retire. ¿Cuándo vas a jubilarte? When are you going to retire? Se jubiló el año pasado. He retired last year. Retire. Y nada más. Not to get retired, to be retired, or to retire yourself. No, to retire. Nunca aprenden esto. Nunca. It's incredible. You never learn it. Never. They always make mistakes. Okay, page 83, paragraph 759, the next to last. How much time? Oh, my God. We have all the time in the world. Okay. In the 200 meters, the starting line is 160 meters from the finish line. Before electronic timing, the judges had to watch the smoke from the gun to know when to start their stopwatches. Estoy seguro que no. I'm sure you didn't understand this. Estoy seguro que nadie me ha entendido. Y no hay ninguna palabra rara. Okay. Bueno, stopwatch. Stopwatch. En los teléfonos. El cronómetro. You're using a stopwatch. Claro, it's a watch. Watch es un reloj. Wristwatch. Pocket watch. Pocket watch. But similar to a pocket watch, you have a stopwatch. Con ese ruido. Okay. Stopwatch. It's a stopwatch. All right. Now they don't need stopwatches. Now it's electronic. Everything is electronic. But many years ago, you needed a stopwatch. Said, on your marks, get set. They're coming. Okay. Now, let me read the paragraph again. In the 200 meters, the starting line is 160 meters from the finish line. Before electronic timing, the judges had to watch the smoke from the gun to know when to start their stopwatch. Okay. If you are a judge, this is in the Olympics. If you go back and watch recordings of the Olympics from 40 years ago, 50 years ago, at the finish line is la línea, la meta. At the finish line, hay una escalera arriba con asientos y los jueces estaban todos sentados arriba. Now you have the 100 meters, and the 100 meters starts 100 meters from the finish line. The 200 meters start around on the other side, at the beginning of the curve. No sé si se ve en la tele. The beginning of the curve. And that's about 160 meters away. In both cases, to start the stopwatch, the judges had to watch the gun and the smoke Smoke comes out. When you see the smoke, start the stopwatch. Because the distance of 100 meters or 160 meters, there's a lag. Demora. No llega el sonido. Because sound travels slowly. You see. And so you have, when you're watching, the judges are watching, and they hear the gun half a second late. Medio segundo más tarde. So they have to do based on so it says here, in the 200 meters, the starting line is 160 meters from the finish line in diagonal, in recto. It's 200 meters por la pista, claro. 160 meters. All right, from the finish line. Before electronic timing, antes del cronometraje electrónico, before electronic timing, the judges had to watch the smoke from the gun to know when to start their stopwatches. It was interesting because once I was a judge, once, when I was running, and I had to watch for the smoke. All right. Interesting stuff. The stopwatch. You had to watch the smoke from the gun, procedente del cañón. All right. One more. Page 83. At the bottom. When I was 9 years old, this is true. I remember this guy. I remember him. Strange kid. Kind of. He was a geek. When I was 9 years old, I remember a kid who was crazy about Greek mythology and the American Civil War. He was only 9 years old. He was only 9 like me, but he spent hours studying the subjects. Okay. Strange. I can't remember his name. But I remember once I was in his house and he had a chemistry set. With chemistry set for children. So he was bombas. But he was crazy about Greek mythology. You know, Zeus, Hera, Aphrodite, Mars, Apollo, Hermes, Poseidon, all of them, and Jupiter, Neptune, he was crazy about that. He was an expert. But he was also an expert on the American Civil War. Guerra Civil Americana, the South, the North and the South. I remember once the teacher said, okay, boys and girls, starting next Monday, we're going to begin to study the American Civil War. And wow, he was, the American Civil War. Okay. The American Civil War was a terrible war. More Americans died in the American Civil War than in Europe and the Pacific in the Second World War. 600,000 young men died in the American Civil War. In the Second World War, about 430,000, not 600,000. The American Civil War was terrible. Abraham Lincoln is considered a great president by the Americans. However, he was partially responsible for the cruelest war in the history of the United States. And so Abraham Lincoln wanted to keep the Union together. That was his first priority. His first priority was not to free the slaves. Liberar los esclavos. To free the slaves was not his number one priority. His number one priority was to keep the Union, se dice la unión, to keep the Union together. And he did that. But it was very, very cruel. It was a very hard war. A very hard war. Okay, civil wars are always terrible. When I was 9 years old, I remember a kid Un chavalín, un chaval. I remember a kid who was crazy about Greek mythology and the American Civil War. He was only 9, like me. But he spent hours studying the subjects. Okay. How much time, Marta? Okay. We'll come back tomorrow or the day after tomorrow to page 84. Okay. All right. I enjoy these paragraphs. I enjoy these paragraphs more than the expressions. And finally, I think we have Pierre Monet, one more. Nos queda un episodio del traductor, Pierre Monet. Pierre Monet, he's a translator. Yes. Pierre Monet had to stay at the ministry yesterday until 7 p.m. Wow. Pierre finishes at 4 every day. But yesterday he had to stay until 7. Okay. He was asked to work with a colleague to translate a secret document that had arrived just before 4 p.m. Oh, okay. So Pierre goes home at 4 p.m. However, it was 5 minutes to 4 and a secret document arrived. Probably urgent. A secret document, documento secreto. A secret document arrived, but just before 4 p.m. from the French embassy in London. La embajada francesa en Londres. From the French embassy in London. All right. Pierre usually goes home at 4, but his boss rushed into Pierre's office just as he was getting ready to leave. Okay, Pierre was getting up. Bueno, se ve. Cogiendo el abrigo para marcharse. ¿Eh? Yeah. By the way, Marta, in the future, that little plastic bag, remove it from my program. Take it away. Because I have a tendency to look at the plastic bag and not at the camera. I'm catching myself. Me estoy pillando, mirando un poco abajo. And not looking at you. I'm looking at a plastic bag. All right? It distracts me. And I end up looking lower and not looking at you. Can you notice? All right. But in any case, Pierre was in his office. He had finished everything up. Getting up. He went to the coat rack. The coat rack is el perchero. And he was getting his coat. And his boss rushed in. To rush is apresurarse. Entró apresurado. He rushed in. Yes. Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. That's a very famous song by Elvis Presley. ¿Te suena? Yeah. Wise men say, los hombres sabios dicen. Wise men say, only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Los sabios dicen que solo los tontos entran precipitadamente. Pero no puedo evitarme enamorarme de ti. It's a very, very romantic song. To rush in. Hay un dicho en inglés que los tontos entran precipitadamente en terrenos donde los ángeles ni se atreven a transitar. Okay. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. It's difficult English. Fools rush in. Mira, nueva inversión, todos. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. To tread is... Bueno, treadmill es una máquina de andar, es una máquina. Treadmill. To tread is transitar o caminar. And so the fools rush in. But in this case, Pierre's boss probably is not a fool. But he rushed in. Said, "What? Pierre, don't go. No, put your coat back. We have a problem." we have a problem. So, Pierre usually goes home at 4 p.m., but at 4 o'clock. But his boss rushed into Pierre's office just as he was getting ready to leave. He told him the President of the Republic needed a document translated immediately. Presidente de la República, the President of the Republic. When Pierre called his wife to tell her that he would be late, she told him that he had just received at home a 15-page report from the chairman of Peugeot. Okay. And that it had to be done by 9 a.m. the next morning. All right, I'm going to stop there at that moment because I have to go. Is it time? How much time do I have? No, I have to go. I'm going to stop there. It is an interesting story because now he has a dilemma. He needs to stay because of the President of the Republic, and then the chairman of Peugeot needs a translation. Well, maybe tomorrow or the next day we'll look at this. Take care.